Hello, hello, welcome. I'm going to get started here, just letting everyone join. And I think we will get started. Hello, hello, I am Suzanne Nielsen, your host for today. And this is the, oh gosh, I think it's the 53rd, but it might be the 54th. Tutorial Tuesday, and this is the second installment of our very special guest. Mary Beth Temple is with us again, showing us the techniques that she used in her beautiful crocheted poncho wrap. So if you missed last week's, you can still catch those on our YouTube channel, and then this one is being recorded too, so you can go back and watch it. Last week we did the granny square, and this week we get to do the rows and a couple different edge border stitches. And let's see, I think I do get to give away a $25 gift certificate and one more prize that I'll tell you about later. So stay tuned and pay attention, because I'll come up with some question about what Mary Beth tells us. So, all right, let's let Mary Beth take it away. And
hi guys, welcome back. Again, if you have not seen last week's Zoom, I recommend that you check it out, but you don't need to have seen it to join us tonight. And once again, this is a much smaller section of the wrap than the one that Suzanne was wearing, because I wanted to have enough for you to see what I was doing, but not so much that it was going to hang off of camera. So it won't be exactly like you see it when you see it in the pattern. And also, again, I mentioned this last week, I changed the colors up a little bit from the pattern, just because some of those colors that have beautiful depth of color and lots of speckles and flecks, they're really hard to see on camera when you're trying to learn a stitch. So I've used some plainer colors today, but they all are Zen Yarn Garden. And of course, you don't have to choose the colors that Suzanne is wearing. They have that kit available in a bunch of different colorways. So last week, we learned to make the granny squares, and we learned how to join them as we go. So when you are getting ready to do the next section, you are going to have 10 granny squares in a row, I believe. And so the next thing we need to learn to do is to put this double crochet on here, and that is the body of the wrap. Now, when you're making your wrap and you're reading your pattern, this is the only side where you're going to put double crochet. You're not going to put them on double crochets on both sides. You're just going to have it on this side. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to double crochet on this side just so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to begin with what we call a standing double crochet. And by that, I mean, I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook. I'm going to leave a nice long tail. I don't know how many of you are beginner crocheters, but I'm always amazed how many people leave little tiny 2 or 3 inch tails and then they have a hard time weaving them in. So leave yourself a good size tail so you have room to do it later. And I'm going to look for the corner, my outside corner of my granny square. So I'm going to yarn over, because I'm just going to make a double. I'm going to insert my hook in that space, yarn over and draw up a loop. I have 3 loops on my hook, 1, 2, 3. Going to yarn over and draw through 2 twice. So that is a standing double crochet. And if you do double crochet, I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit here. No, because Zoom hates me. All right. If you do double crochet, it's a basically, it's a double crochet, but it replaces that whole join with a slip stitch chain 3 thing. I'd always rather see a double crochet than a chain 3. So following the instructions, we're going to put 1 double crochet in each of these 3 double crochet, because there's 3 double crochet in each group. So we're going to go 1. Also, I tension my yarn like a medieval English crocheters. You don't have to tension your yarn like me. However you tension your yarn is fine. Don't get confused by my wacky yarn tension. I'm trying to make it a little brighter. How about that? There we go.
It's looking good.
So I put my double crochet in the corner. I put a double crochet in each of those 3 double crochets. And now I'm going to put a double crochet in the chain space. So that's how I'm going to start this row. However, what I figured when I was doing the sample was that if I did that all the way across, what happened is the granny square stretched out and was too wide. So for these central 3 shells, we're going to have a decrease. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to double crochet in the first double crochet, like we've been doing. Now there's 2 in a row, and we're going to make a double crochet 2 together. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. I have 3 loops on my hook, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to yarn over, draw through 2, and I'm going to stop. I am not going to finish my double. Now I'm going into the next stitch, yarn over, insert my hook in the stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. Now I have 4 loops on my hook, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to yarn over, draw through 2. So these are the bottom half of a full double crochet, and there's 2 of them next to each other. So now I have 3 loops on my hook, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to yarn over and draw through all 3 loops. So that's a double crochet 2 together. It is a 1 stitch decrease, and we have taken 2 stitches, there's our 2 feet, and turned it into 1. It's only got 1 hat. So let's go through, and then the next thing we're going to do is double crochet in the chain space. So let's do that again. We're going to double crochet in the next double crochet. Double crochet 2 together, yarn over, insert your hook in the stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. Do it again. Yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. You have 3 loops on your hook, 1, 2, 3, yarn over and draw through 3. And then 1 in the chain space. So we're going to do that little trick one more time, double, double crochet 2 together. Here, I'm going to tie intention like a normal person, just for your amusement. And then 1 in the chain space. And so this is what we have left at the end of the square. So we're going to put 1 in each of these 3. There's no decrease at this point. 1, 2, 3, and 1 in the space. And that space is the same place where your join was when you were doing your join as you go. So that is my first, I've gone across my first square, and I'm going to have 18 stitches, and all that is written out in the pattern, and you can get the pattern. I'm sure Roxanne will give you a link. So we're going to do that all the way across. So I'm just going to do it one more time, one more square, but you of course will have more squares if you're making the wrap. So this is a new square. I'm going to put a double crochet in the corner, or let's try that again. Double crochet in each of these 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 1 in the chain space. Now for these central guys, we're going to put 1 double crochet in the first one, then a double crochet 2 together, 1, 2, finish the stitch, and 1 in the chain space. Going to do that 2 more times. 1 in the first one, double crochet 2 together, 1 in the chain space, and then 1, double crochet 2 together, 1 in the chain space, and then for my last one, I'm going to go 3 doubles. 1, 2, 3. Pardon me, I missed one. 3, and then 1 in the corner chain space. So there we go. So at this point, you would keep going, keep going, keep going. And then all you would have to do to finish this section, and you would follow the instructions for the color work, is chain 3 and turn, double crochet in each double crochet across, remembering that that chain 3 counts as a stitch. So that chain 3 replaces that first stitch. So you're going to start in the second one. And when you come back on your row, you're going to put your last double crochet in the top of that chain 3 because it does count as a stitch. So again, you would follow with the instructions to make sure that you had your 3 big bands of color. And that's going to be what's going on in that section. So I'm going to pass it back to Suzanne so she can do her housekeeping. And then when we come back, we're going to work on the side edging.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and do the gift certificate. So open your chats. I'm going to ask a question here. Everyone open chats. Let's see, how does Mary Beth like to start her row instead of just a chain 3? Do you remember what that's called? She starts it with, oh goodness, yes, you got it really fast. Okay, Sherry, I'm going to just say you're the winner today. A standing double crochet. So that's a term. And a lot of people got it. Good job. So you're the winner, Sherry Ham, and go ahead and message Roxanne and she will get you your gift certificate. But we also have 20% off of all of the 3 skein bundles for this pattern. So you can find those. We're going to put a link. We already put a link at the beginning of the chat. I'll paste it again. And also, so those are all different colors. So pick any colors that you want. And 20% off. And you can also get the pattern on Ravelry, and we'll post that too. All right. And I think we have a little bit more about the edging to go over, and feel free to post any questions. We will all either interrupt or else we'll save them for the end, but please go ahead and post questions if you have any coming up. And yeah, thank you, Zen, for sponsoring us here and letting us do these fun things. So, but we'll take it back to you, Mary Beth.
Terrific. And thank you, of course, Zen Yarn Garden, who always includes crochet because she's been listening to me whine about it for years and years now. So I took that section off because, again, when you are making this fabulous wrap at home, your granny squares are on one side and then your double crochets are on the other side, and they're just going to go, 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 go. That's what's going to give you the height of your wrap. But I want to show you a little bit. We're making great time tonight. So if you have questions, as Suzanne said, it's a really good thing to ask them because you don't always have my undivided attention, but you do now. So go ahead and ask the questions while you have me to help you. So now we're on the section that says side edgings repeat on each side. It says orient work to stitch across the short side of the wrap. So I'm starting at a granny and I'm going up the short side of the double crochet. So I'm going up the side edges. Okay, join A with a standing double crochet in the corner chain 2 space. So we're doing that standing again. Here's our chain 2 space. So I have my slip knot on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook in that space, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2 times. So there's my standing double crochet. So we don't have any chains or any nonsense like that. Now it says chain 1, shell in next chain space, chain 1 5 times, and the last of those will be in the next corner space. So we're going to do it 5 times. So we have 1 2 3 4 5. So we had our double crochet, chain 1, which I did. And now we're going to grab, so this part looks kind of like you're making another granny square round. So the shell is defined in the pattern as 3 double crochets in the same stitch or space. So we're going to do this all the way across till we run out of spaces. So that's the first thing. One of the things, and we talked about this a little bit last week, one of the things I really like about the way this wrap is constructed is that each section builds upon the previous section. So it's not like you have to make all these different sections and then go back and sew them together. You can build each piece on top of the piece before, and that makes the finishing at the end. All you really have to do is weave in some ends and you're all set. Almost like I did it on purpose. So again, it told me to do it 5 times. I've done it 4. So there's 1, chain 1, 2, chain 1, 3, chain 1, 4, chain 1. And my last guy is going to go in this corner. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. So that was the easy part. But you can see how it fits right into the gauge and the structure of the granny square. You're building right onto it. Now the second part of the row, it says work 16 shells. So that's 3 double crochets in the same stitch, separated by chain 1, evenly spaced to 2 rows before the top of the wrap. So again, your piece is going to be so much longer. I think it's like 15 or 16 inches long. I just have this little section right here. It's going to require a little bit of math on your part. If you want to just eyeball it and see how, make sure that those the 3 double crochet groups are laying flat, you can do that. What I did on the original is I figured out the number of rows that I had. I knew I wanted to put my last one 2 rows before the end of the wrap. And then I figured out how many I was going to have to go. So I believe on the original, I put a shell every other row. And what I'm doing is I'm going right into the side of that stitch, not down here. You don't want to dig and make a big hole. You're looking for the top of a stitch. You're just going in the side of the top of a stitch, if that makes sense. So here's that stitch. Here's the top of that stitch. I'm coming in from the side and putting in my shell. Whoops, I forgot to chain 1, so let's not do that. The other blessed thing about crochet is if you mess it up, it's really easy to rip out. But you want your shells to lay flat. You don't want them. So if your work is stretching out sideways, you are putting them in too frequently. If your work is drawing in and looks puckered and won't lay flat, you're going too far. You're grabbing too many stitches. I will also say this, at the end of the day, if you had 15 shells on the side or 17, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I had 16 and I wrote it like that because, of course, when you're writing a pattern, you have to say something. You can't just tell people to guess, even if you want to. Because if people could guess on the pattern, they wouldn't need us pattern designers, would they? So I'm going to just keep going here for a little bit. And again, mine's not going to be perfect because I'm sort of fudging on this short sample because I want to get this, I want to get to the next row of this edging. And you'll also have some color changing going on. Now, it is important to pay attention to the color changing because when you have a beautiful luxury yarn like Zen Yarn Garden, you want to use as close to all of it as you can. You don't want to have like a whole ton of it left over. But for somebody like me designing a pattern, I don't want to use so much of it that I only have a 1/16 of an inch left. And if your gauge is slightly off, you don't have enough to finish the piece. So it's good if you can stay close to the numbers in the pattern to make sure that you have enough to finish, but also that you don't have giant tons of leftovers. So again, your piece on this side, your double crochet piece is going to be, 16, 17 inches, whatever it is. When you get to 2 rows before the end, and I'm cheating here, I've only got 1, but I didn't have such a big sample. It says blah, 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 double crochet in the side of the last double crochet. So here's my last double crochet. And I'm going to double crochet, here's my chain 1, and I'm going to double crochet in the side of it. So what you have is this whole row of shells with 1 double crochet on either side of it. Now we're going to chain 3 and turn. 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to alternate rows. Within the only thing that's going to be different is these side edges. So for row 2, there's our chain 3, so that counts as a stitch. And now it says 2 double crochets in the first chain 1 space. So I'm going to go right in that space. Chain 1, shell in next space. So we're going to do this all the way across. And again, at this point, these are called granny stripes. So it's very similar to the setup of a granny square, and they're really super popular these days, the granny stripes. I don't know why that is, but suddenly I'm seeing them on a lot of different projects. So you will now know how to do this. So it's the granny stitch. It's that same 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, and that you're seeing when you're making a granny square, but you're doing it in rows. And again, you want to follow along with the color pattern the way it's written in your pattern. Suzanne, I have to get to the end of this row before we move on to the next thing. So do we have
I'll
any
just show
questions?
what it looks like on, what we're working on. So she's working on this white row right here now. So your white will cross the different colors after you've done
that's a
the
really good
sections of
point.
stripes.
That's a really good point to make, that it's going to be different.
Yes, but yeah, maybe this is just like kind of an easy way to make an open, tiny bit lacy, crocheted. So maybe that's why it's popular now. It's kind of like knit two together, yarn over in the knitting world, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is when people talk about words, people talk about crochet taking more yarn than knitting, and it kind of does. But if you go with an open lacier pattern, then your yarn can go just as far from square inch perspective. All right, so I'm ready.
You've kept it loose. You've kept it not too tight. It's still like super flowy, which I really like in crochet.
Well, that's the yarn. I do love this yarn.
That's
all right, I'm ready to show the end of the row.
All right, no other questions yet, so.
Okay. I still see you. Oh, there we go. So we're at the end of row 2, repeat from start across to last chain 1 space, which is this one. So for this last one, we're going to put 2 double crochet in the chain 1 space, not 3. And then we're going to put our 3rd double crochet in the top of that double crochet. And what that's going to do is that's going to anchor my shells to the side, because I want a straight edge. So row 1, we began and ended with 1 double crochet. Row 2, we began and ended with 3 double crochet. We're going to chain 4 and turn now. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're in row 3. So row 3, we are going back to beginning and ending with 1 double crochet. So there have been instances where that chain 3 counts as a double, but in this case, that chain 4 counts as 1 double crochet and 1 chain 1 space. So when I get to the end of this row, I'm going to put my last shell in here. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip those 2 doubles, and I'm going to put my very last stitch in here. So again, when you're looking at this and you're looking at the alternate rows, it begins and ends with a singular double, or it begins and ends with 3 doubles. The next row will begin and end with a singular double. The next row will begin and end with 3 doubles. And so that is one of the ways you can look at your work while you're stitching and make sure that you are headed in the right direction. You're going to see those rows alternate, and you're going to just follow along with the pattern and the color, and that will get you to the end of that. And then at the final edging, let's see, you're basically, hold on. Shawl position. 7, 2, 3, shawl, extreme space. Okay. And then at the very end, you're going to have an edging that goes around 3 sides of the wrap. I'm sorry, I should have. I can't read my own handwriting. That's terrifying. Suzanne, does the shell stitch go all the way around the wrap? Around all 4 sides?
No, the shell stitch is just on, whoops, sorry, I just lowered my seat here. The shell stitch is just on this side and this side. So
okay,
2
and
sides, like the ends. And then
okay.
this, or whatever, maybe I said it wrong. And then this border is along one edge that you see.
Okay, all right. So then after that, what you're going to do is you're going to follow along with the pattern and put those shell stitch edges in exactly the way it's telling you. And then you're done. All you're going to have to do at that point is weave in ends. So boy, do we have any questions? Is there anything else we want to talk about?
Let's see. So this, yeah, this one, like, is just kind of a single shell stitching at on the border on the top. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about it.
And then joining it, however.
Okay, so join C with a slip stitch in the leftmost corner of the last granny square. So that's going to be here. Chain 1, shell. Okay.
So after you finish, it should, yeah. Oh, maybe this does go around the edge.
Yeah, it does. It does go all the way around. So what's going to happen again? You're going to follow along with the pattern. When you get to the top, you're going to be putting your shells into specific double crochets. Again, following along the pattern. Your side edges, you will have done your side edges or both sides. So you're going to have shells already happening on the 2 sides. And of course, you're already set up for shells on the bottom because that's the bottom of the granny square.
Yes.
So what is going to happen? I remember now. Let me grab a different color so you can see what's happening. Whew. Join C with a slip stitch in the leftmost corner, chain 2 space of the last granny square. So that's here. Because this is not granny square, this is granny stripe. So I'm going to join here. Chain 1. Shell around the post of the last double crochet of row 1 of the side edging. So row 1 of the side edging is here. This is the post of the stitch. So my shell is going here. 1, and my shell, remember, is 3 doubles. 2, 3. So this is going to blend in. So this is round 5 of the grannies. Do you see how it looks coming all the way across the bottom? This is where the join is. So I'm going to work my shells all the way to the end of the granny stripe section, which is essentially here. And then I'm going to turn the work. I'm going to work shells across my granny stripe section, which is already set up for shells. It's already got the chain 1 spaces. Then I'm going to go across the top. I'm going to put shells in the chain 1 spaces the way the pattern is written, and my shells that go across the top, it's going to tell me working across the top of the shawl, skip 3 double crochet, shell in the next double crochet, skip 3 double crochet, chain 1, shell in the next double crochet. So you're going to have your shells across the top of the work. When you get to here, you're going to turn the corner and you're going to have your granny stripes are going to be here. So you're going to put your shells down here. And then when you get to the bottom, let's look at the other side and pretend. You're going to work across your granny stripe section and end when the granny square starts. So the only important, so it does, the edging does go on 3 sides and a little bit of the fourth side. It does not go all the way across the bottom. We're going all the way across the bottom. We've got our shells from our granny square. So again, you're going to go to your leftmost one. You're going to join the yarn right there in that corner, work to the end of the stripe section, up the side edging, across the top, down the side edging because you've done the side edging on both sides, and then across the bottom only until you get to the granny square. And when you get to that granny square, you're going to put your slip stitch in there and end off. So once again, the edging goes around the three sides and just the teensiest bit of the bottom. So as long as you know that you will begin and end where those squares begin and end, then you won't have any kind of a problem. And it's really easy to see the shell spacing on the top because that's just regular double crochets.
And it's a different color.
Yep, absolutely. It's also a different color. But yeah, it's very easy to put, 3 double crochets in a space, chain, skip 3, put 3, skip 3, etc. You're not having to do math for the spacing. Like I was saying along the side, you have to think about the math a little bit to make sure that it lays flat, but you're not going to have that problem on the top because it's all written out for you.
And then I imagine you can just kind of pin it together how you would want, and then just do a little seam. If you want it to be a little, if you want the neck a little tighter or looser, or however you want.
So again, we've written in the pattern, so you know what I did. So fold, wrap in half, short sides together, make a 5-inch seam along the top as shown in the photo, beginning 8 inches in from the side edge. So Suzanne, if you want to put that back on your shoulder, the camera back on you, you can move it. You can have it closer to your neck. You could have it closer to, do you know what I mean? The person that's going to wear it can adjust that side seam in whatever direction they want. The reason we're recommending that 5-inch seam is so it sits on your shoulder and doesn't go flying off into the middle of next week.
But it's still easy to get over your head.
Exactly. But you can put that 5-inch seam wherever you want. So if you're making the wrap for yourself, I mean, I stood with it on in front of the mirror and, moved pins around until I was certain it was where I wanted it. But the seam does not have to be exactly where the pattern is written. If moving it makes the wrap sit more comfortably on your shoulders, then you could do that. You could even put it on the edge and do kind of like a cowl neck thing. It's really up to the individual wearer.
Wear it a lot of different ways too. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did have one request for weaving in your ends. Can you show us how you would
my
weave
gosh.
in your end?
I wove all my ends.
Well, there's one from your standing crochet, right? Here's.
Oh yeah. Let me see if I can find it. Let's get rid of this. Now, weaving in ends, you all, is more of an art than a science, and you will become more practiced as you go. I'm going through the studio supplies here looking for tapestry needle, but I have one, so it's all good. Knitting, I feel like, has more of a, this is how you do it, you must do it this way. Crochet, it's like, you're going to want to hide it somewhere. What I
always say, at least in knitting, I think that the real key is to go one direction and then U-turn, just to kind of do some back and forth. I imagine crochet is a little bit like that.
So crochet is very similar. So what I like to do, particularly for the granny squares, is I like to look for a section where there's a bunch of stitches in a row. I'm not going to try and hide it here. Do you know what I mean? So I might go under these 3 stitches, but now 3 stitches is not going to be enough, right? So if I had a long section, now if I'm doing the granny squares, I am really sorry that I wove all my ends in already. I like to weave my granny square ends in the corners because there's 6 stitches in a row there that I can hide it in, right? So I try and do my weaving in of ends on the corners of my granny square, but I do absolutely, I'll go through a direction. So if I had, 6 in a row, I would go back in this direction, make a U-turn like you put it, to make sure it's covered. But I don't want to cut my end there because I don't want to see fray. So again, I might go back in this direction. I might, let's see, I would probably just pick out, I'm trying to do this so you can see it. I might just pick out a couple of crossbars of that double crochet and weave it through, and you don't want to pull it tight. You don't want it so loose that it sticks out, but you don't want it so tight but it's going to make the rows wonky. And then again, I'm going to go through the bottom of those double crochets, and then I'm going to make another U-turn, not right in the same space because it'll just pull right out. I'm going to go in a stitch. And I will sometimes, I don't generally do it on yarn that is as fine as this, but I will also occasionally split the plies, put my tapestry needle in the middle of the yarn and trim it, and now it's gone. But for these guys, I did my end weaving in around the middle where we had the magic ring. And then for the color changes up here, I went into the corner because again, I could take my needle and I could go through 6 stitches instead of 3. You know what I mean? So it made it a little more secure. And then I did a U-turn, went back the other way, trimmed it, and called it done. I hope that helps. Yep.
I was also just going to mention that you just like knitting. I imagine that blocking is a good thing to do too.
Oh, absolutely. I wet block everything. And again, one of the things I like about Zen Yarn Garden is I don't tend to get a lot of hand-dyed yarns. You get some bleed, but Zen Yarn Garden you really don't. So yeah, I would wet block everything. I use cold water, obviously.
Cold, yes.
I'm a big fan of Orvis soap, but there are other soaps you can use like Eucalyptus or like Soak. I like
Unicorn.
Okay, Unicorn is also an option. I like Orvis because I'm cheap and I buy it. People always love this story. Orvis is sold in the craft store in small bottles for, $10 for people to use on their quilts, but it is also used as equine shampoo. So I buy it by the gallon at the veterinary supply store. Out here in the Midwest, you can get it at Rural King, but I have a gallon jar and I scoop a little bit out, but it's low sudsing, biodegradable, phosphate free, unscented, and they use it to wash horses. Nice. So I use Orvis because I buy it by the gallon and it's very inexpensive. So cold water, I soak it for at least a half an hour. When you're bringing, well, because you want the fiber to open up. For natural fiber, it needs a half an hour to get into the core. When you're lifting it, particularly with crochet, you want to make sure you're not pulling it up by one end this way. You want to make sure you've got yourself under there. It's the water that will hurt it. The water, the weight of it can pull it out. You can squeeze, but you can't wring. No wringing, no twisting. Are they saying me, Suzanne, or you?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, they're saying both of us.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Okay, because I'm doing hand gestures over here, but I can only see you. So you're going to squeeze, do not wring. And then I do what's called a jelly roll. I will lay out a towel, and I like to use a white towel so I can see if anything's bleeding. But again, bless our friends at Zen Yarn Garden, because I don't usually have that problem. So I'll put the towel under here. I'll lay this on top and I'll roll the whole thing like a jelly roll. And then I'm going to put pressure on it. If it's a big piece like a finished wrap, I'm probably going to stand on it, holding onto the counter so I don't fall down and break my elderly neck. But I'm pushing on it. And what's going to happen is the water is going to transfer from the piece to the towel. Then I'm going to unroll it. And what will happen is the bulk of the water will go to the towel. The towel you can throw in the wash and the dryer. And then this you can pin out, or I use, those foam rubber things that you stand on that, again, you get them at the hardware store. There are beautiful blocking boards out there, but I'm too cheap to buy them. So I use foam rubber mats that you can get at the home supply store. And the other thing I swear by is blocking wires. If you're going to do a piece like this, that's essentially a big rectangle, blocking wires will save your life every single time. I have 2 sets. I have a lace weight set and I have a worsted set, but I'll weave my wires in my edges and I'll pin my wires out, and that gives me beautiful, gorgeous straight edges. So if you're going to do wearables, I highly recommend you invest in a decent set of blocking wires because it will make your life better in the long run. And for knit and crochet pieces, particularly garments, when you have to go back and sew the pieces together, if they're blocked, they're so much easier to do the finish work. If you block each individual piece, each sleeve, the front, the back, before you go and sew things together, it's going to sew together so much more easily, and you'll get a much better fit and finish.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. And we did have one follow-up question on the weaving in. I think you mentioned sometimes you split, but not necessarily going for splitting the yarn. But that was the question. Do you split the yarn?
I
try to
generally
avoid it?
speaking, I don't. Well, I try to avoid it in general, but sometimes, again, it's like, here's my problem. I have too many thoughts on too many topics. Here's the thing with splitting the plies. If I think there's any chance in my life that I'm going to have to unpick this, I'm never going to split the ply.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't want to split the ply if I think I'm going to damage. But if I'm doing thicker yarn, the other thing is something like this, which is wool. It's 75% wool, 25% nylon, or 80-20. I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't have a label on this. These can be a little slippy and pull out easily, the things that have beautiful merino in them. Garbage yarn holds together easier, you know what I mean? So sometimes, occasionally. So if you watch me doing it right here, I'm not splitting the plies. I'm going in and out, but then sometimes I came unthreaded. Let's see. Sometimes on the very last thing, I might split the ply. So when we talk about splitting the plies, what we mean is bringing the needle up between the individual plies or strands that make up the yarn. And so sometimes splitting that last ply, that last section, will help lock it into place. That's what I meant.
Yay. Well, that was great. That was a lot of information, and thank you for doing the crochet demo for us and all these techniques. So now we can all, dabble into crocheting a little bit more than we might have before, and or
I will bring you all over to the dark side one way or the other.
I like both. I like to just be able to do it all. For different things and different, it can give your hand a rest or give your hands a rest to switch it up and do different things. You might find that you need that, I think. Do you ever knit, Mary Beth?
Oh yeah, I was a knitter long before I was a crocheter.
Okay.
I also design sewing patterns. I'm multi-crafty. I like to do it all.
Multi-crafty.
I've actually done a lot of knitting patterns. You'd have to ask Roxanne, but I've done a lot of knitted shawls for Roxanne over the years.
Oh, I'm sure I've seen them. I just didn't associate all of them.
Yeah, no, it's
sure
fine. I'm very prolific, and I've been doing this a long time. I'm coming up on my 500th design on Ravelry.
Wow.
And I've written, 10 books. So
wow.
Both knitting and crocheting. So I am very prolific, and I do not like the separation between knit and crochet. My theory is I see in my head what I want to do, and I'll use whichever technique gets the job done.
Nice. Yes. It's all yarn, right? We're all just yarn addicts.
Yep.
I think. Awesome. Well, we were so honored to have you, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you for joining us. And yay.
All right. Well, thank you again. I'll see you guys again someday.
Yes, thank you. Bye.